And welcome back to Sports Plus. When you say the name Bob Knight, it conjures up a lot of adjectives. Intense, principled, demanding, combative, oh yes, controversial. But there's one more word that has to be included when describing Bob Knight: winner. The numbers jump out at you. 619 career wins, 11 Big Ten championships, 3 NCAA titles, an Olympic gold medal, and maybe the most meaningful statistic of all, nearly 95% of Knight's four-year players have left Indiana University with a degree. And joining us now on Sports Plus is Coach Knight. Coach Knight, thanks for being here. Talk about how meaningful that is, that 95% of your four-year players graduate. Is that more meaningful than winning NCAA championships to you?
No, it really isn't, because that simply, to me, is what we should be doing. I think that when we take a kid from a home, wherever that may be, what we're essentially saying is we're going to do at least as much for that kid as you'd be able to do if he stayed here at home with you as parents. And I think, to me, the whole essence of going to college is eventually graduating. So if we're going to bring a kid to college, bring him to Indiana University, then I think it's incumbent upon us to see that the kid graduates. So that is something that I believe we're expected to do. Now, I'm not so sure that we're expected to win. I think when you win, that's kind of the icing on the cake. But the cake itself is the kid having a meaningful experience as a player and getting a degree as a student.
And yet some coaches will say, look, I couldn't control this player. I'm not his father. I couldn't get him to go to class. What do you say to those kinds of reactions?
Well, the way to get a kid to go to class that's playing basketball is really simple. You either go to class or you don't play. I mean, you don't have to be Einstein to figure that one out. That works extremely well. We start out a little bit with, we keep track of our kids' class records, and if a kid cuts class, then we get him up and let him run at about 5:30 in the morning. And it's amazing how I think the early morning air, the clarity of the air, the briskness of the air enables that kid to, in the future, set his alarm clock in such a way that he doesn't miss any more class.
The criteria that you have for basketball players to come to Indiana is not just a good jump shot or a good rebounder or a guy who can play defense. What do you look for in a player that you're recruiting?
Well, and this is a very difficult thing to determine, but I would like to get a player that can listen. I'd like to think that a player that we're bringing in can listen to what we want done, that he can adjust to what's going to be expected of him as a college player, as opposed to what he did or how he was used or how he played as a high school player. And you can't always determine that. I'd like to look at a kid. A kid does not have to be an A student, but if he's a C student or a slightly higher than a C student, that's what I would hope would be his academic capabilities. I don't want to get a kid that's a C student who should be an A student. That's always the kind of kid that I would just as soon go somewhere else. I'd like to be able to think that this kid has really worked to get the most out of what he has. I like to talk to people that don't know the kid, that have coached against the kid, that have officiated games in which the kid has played, or if I happen to know somebody that's a really knowledgeable fan in an area. You know, what do you think of this kid?
You've been in coaching a long time, and I'm
Long
wondering
time.
a long time. I'm wondering, have kids changed? Do you think over the years? I mean, there seems to be. I mean, you know a lot about discipline. That is the kind of thing that Bobby Knight is known for. Have kids changed over the years when it comes to that?
I'll tell you how I think kids have changed. I think it's all been for the better. I think they're smarter. I think they know more about what's going on. I think they're more interested in a much wider variety of subjects today than kids were when I was a kid playing or thinking about going to college or playing in college. But the thing that has been detrimental to kids, their development and their well-being, I think, has been kind of a laissez-faire attitude adopted by adults, by teachers, by parents, a little bit like, well, why I don't want to irritate Johnny. You know, I want to be Johnny's friend, not Johnny's teacher, not Johnny's captain, not Johnny's boss. You know, why my dad never worried about being Bobby's friend. I'll tell you that. My dad worried about making sure I did what he wanted done, and I was fortunate enough to have parents like that, as a lot of us are, and also teachers the same way. And I think that the basic problem that kids have is that adults that they come in contact with at various stages of their development have ceased to be as demanding of those kids. See, I think that we can get more out of the kids because they are smarter, they are better read, they're exposed to more things, they have more to give today than kids had 20 or 30 years ago, simply because of what they know. But to get it, we've got to be just as demanding as those people were 30 years ago.
So teachers have changed, but it seems just looking at Bobby Knight, your principles have never changed. Has that been difficult?
Well, I may be anachronistic. I mean, I'm not so sure that in some cases I have really, quote, kept up with the times, but I'm not sure that keeping up with the times is in always the best interests of kids that I have anything to do with, i.e. The players that I have.
Talk about the 1976 team, your undefeated team. I read somewhere where you thought that was a great team, but not as good as the team you had the year before. Is that true?
The team we had in '75 was a better offensive team. We had two or three kids on that team, really a tough kid as a guard, and two really good scorers that we didn't have the next year. We just had a deeper team, a team that was much better offensively than the '76 team was, and yet was still a very good defensive team. I would think that was the best team that I've ever had, and unfortunately, our best player Scott May went down with a broken forearm toward the end of that season, and had that team. I think May was our leading scorer, and he was averaging about 23 points a game, playing only 26 or 27 minutes a game. I think prior to his injury, I think that the team was on its way to setting an all-time scoring differential in NCAA basketball of 23 point something or 22 point something points per game. So I think that team probably was certainly the best that I've had.
It would have been interesting to see that team up against John Wooden's UCLA team in his final year.
Now, fortunately for UCLA, in Wooden's final year, they didn't have to play that team in total, because if they would have, they would not have been a match for that Indiana team.
You mentioned at the luncheon that we had earlier that Michael Jordan is simply the best basketball player you've ever seen. You got to coach him in international play on the Olympic team. Talk a little bit about him in that experience.
Jordan, I go beyond basketball. I think the only person that's ever played a sport that I considered to be Jordan's equal would be Nicholas during the 15 or 20 years that he was at his prime in golf. And I don't think anybody has been able to dominate as many facets of play in a game. I mean, there's been a home run hitter or a pitcher or a ball carrier or whatever. But Jordan can do everything that has to be done on a basketball floor, as Nicholas could do everything that had to be done on a golf course. And I think they're the two most dominant participants that have ever played American sport. I don't think there's anybody that's even close to being. I had a friend in the NBA talking about the draft, and I was talking about Jordan when he was on the Olympic team, and this fellow who's a very close friend of mine said, well, what we need is a center. And I said, well, then play Jordan at center. I said, he'll be the best center in the league. Wherever you play him, he's going to be the best player at that position. There are three things I've always felt that are important for great players to have. Ability, athletic ability, intelligence, and competitiveness. And Jordan has each of them to about as great a degree as I think a player could have, and you put all three of those together, and it makes him into something that I don't think we have ever seen before, nor do I really believe we'll ever see again in American sport.
Were you surprised at his decision to retire?
No. How tough would it be to be Michael Jordan 82 times a year plus playoffs? I mean, that has really got to be hard. Even in a situation like the Olympics, where we played about 9 games in Los Angeles. I can even remember, as I thought back after Michael's retirement, I can remember saying to myself that there were times when I said, rarely, Mike, you're better than this. And his only answer would be, you're right, or I know. And he'd play better. But even then, I'm saying to him, play like Michael Jordan plays, which rarely did he not do. And yet, if I, as a coach, made that demand of him, then think of the demands that fans make and the media makes and the whole thing. And I would think that maybe nobody has ever been in a position where he can't go anywhere or he can't do anything, that there isn't some remark made about, some story written about, like Michael has gone through these last 5 years, let's say.
So you can understand the burnout factor for a Michael Jordan. What about the burnout factor for a Bobby Knight, for a guy who's intent and intense? Do you ever want to throw up your arms and go,
oh,
that's
yeah.
it?
I mean, I want to throw up my arms at a lot of things from time to time. I mean, I'm no stranger to doing that. But my world isn't even an infinitesimal percentage of what we're talking about with the Michael Jordan. You know, I've really, I go fishing, I go hunting, I play golf with one or two other guys. I mean, I just, I do a lot of things. I'm not so sure about the burnout. I don't think that they're really, I'm not a great adherent to burnout. I'm sure that Mike, if he started playing tomorrow, I'm sure Michael could average 34 points a game tomorrow. So he's not burned out. He's not, his skills have not diminished. I'm sure his desire to be good has not diminished. I really think that as intelligent as he is, that he's just said, hey, for another year, I'm going to be another Michael Jordan. And then without ever having talked to him, I would think that he'll sit back and look at this and then say, which of these two Michael Jordans have I enjoyed the most? Which do I want to be next year or for the next couple of years? And then I think he'll make his decision as to what he's going to do.
You graduated some pretty good players off your Indiana team last year, including Calbert Chaney. When you lose a guy like that and Greg Graham, as you look forward to this year, you got a couple of holes to fill. How do you view your Indiana team coming into this season?
Well, I think one of maybe the most singularly interesting aspect of coaching is trying to develop a team, trying to put a team together that you know when you go out to play, you're going to be competitive with whomever you play. Then I think the next thing in terms of interest is, can we keep this going? Can we be good tonight and then good Saturday and then good? Can we be good all year long? Then maybe can we have a little run here for 2 or 3 years and be a good team, and then we start all over again. So we're in the throes of the initial stages of that whole process right now. We lost 4 really good players. We had not only really good players, but players that really were greatly interested in being a good basketball team. And we lose the 4 of them, Nova and Reynolds and Graham and Chaney. And now we'd like to have the same kind of team in terms of its intellectual and emotional approach to play and what it wants to accomplish as a team, but we'll be doing it with a whole different set of abilities. Now, that's the interesting part for me as a coach. Can we identify the best route that we've got to take to get where we want to be, and then just see if we can get there?
Coach, we appreciate your time very much. Thank you very much. That's Coach Bobby Knight of Indiana, and we'll be right back.